Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of the Knock and Talk podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Professor D, and
I'm your other host, Anarchy.
And today is a very special episode because today we have a guest. And would our host introduce themselves, please?
Yeah, this is Dr. Shizer.
Yes, and we're focusing on psychology today. So, Dr. Shizer here, or his other alias, Dr. Yeetski, also knows a good amount about psychology, just like Mr. Anchi. So they'll be the main contributors here. But anyway, let's jump into the topics. Oh,
yeah. So both me and you want to go into psychology as a profession, right?
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to go more into that or no?
Well, first, why did you choose it?
Okay. Well, we're different because you want to be a psychiatrist and I want to be a psychologist, right? So okay, for the viewers, right, the difference is a psychiatrist, you need to go to medical school.
I actually prescribe medicine as well.
And he prescribes actual physical medicine. A psychologist.
That's why I need to go to med school. I need to know the chemical processes.
Right.
So,
like I would just be prescribing different therapies.
Right.
I'd be a counselor, right? Okay. Anyway.
Pretty much. We'll figure that out later, though.
Yeah, facts. Okay, right. So, okay, why did I get into it? I think, well, first of all, it's like we spoke about on, I think, our previous episode. We're very interested in learning, both of us. Mm-hmm. Professor D and I, right?
Absolutely.
So that's definitely part of it. Psychology is just so interesting to me, right? And it's like, I think this goes back to what we were talking about as well. It's very useful to understand psychology because it could be a great way to help people.
It's practical.
Right. If you
Sure.
know what's causing the problem or what causes problems in people's lives, or what is affecting them mentally, right, or something like
it's
that.
It's a scientific study of the person, the study of how they think.
The study of the mind, yeah.
Of course, it's important.
But
right, and it can be used to help a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
do you think it's important self-reflection, though? Because I heard to me now, I'm starting to think that's dangerous. It's the opposite.
Why?
Like, because if you start looking at yourself with that lens and with that perspective, you start seeing things that you just would not see naturally. And like, if I had just gone pure bio, I never would have thought that kind of stuff.
Well,
So-
we have to consider everything in moderation. We
Yeah.
also have to take into consideration other factors of how much we interact with others, and we gain also a sense of how self-critical they are upon themselves. And in that way, we gain an understanding of how self-critical we can be upon ourselves and what's like a good rational limit.
Okay.
That's my take.
If I understand, then I agree with you, because I would say that I disagree with our guest, Dr. Sharma, whatever your name is.
Whoa! Okay,
Yeah,
I think it's Dr. Yeetski.
Yeah.
Let's settle with Yeetski.
You have a lot of different
Yeah.
names.
Different
So,
sects, you know.
I would definitely disagree a little bit with Dr. Yeetski, because I think if we do see those things, it's a good thing. Like,
Good
if
to
you start
recognize?
yes, like
Okay.
I think that's what you were saying. I don't know, but I do. Okay.
I get what he's saying. He's
All right.
yeah. You kind of need to know how to measure yourself as well.
Right,
It
right.
is good for that. It is good for that.
Like the game. Well, I mean, that just kind of drives into the general topic of in order to gain a sense of identity, we need to recognize some other being, right? And so
That's
when we take a closer look at it, in order to gain identity of a certain aspect of ourselves, we have to recognize that certain aspect of the of whatever topic is addressing in another being. So
A particular aspect you might focus on is like trying to see how you can grow or how looking forward what you can do. So for something like that, this might help bring us into the first topic, I guess. You kind of want to analyze your past, but how do you even know how to do that without maybe a psych perspective? So
Okay, so that was nice. Let's go into the first topic here. We were talking a little bit before the podcast about therapy.
right.
So both Dr. Yeetski and I we both
Well,
attend counseling sessions.
I wouldn't say we go regularly just yet.
Right.
We kind of just tried it.
just for the just to see what's going on.
Yeah, because
The
I thought it
novelty.
could be helpful.
in my opinion, in general, it's helpful for anyone. Like even if they are
I
mentally
agree.
healthy,
I agree with that.
I think it should be treated the way checkups are treated, just for I don't know, physical
Mm-hmm.
ailments and such. So, in my opinion, it's just good to go for a regular checkup, honestly. Because I know some people there, because of the way the culture is, they're just so isolated from that kind of thing that for years it just goes unchecked. and it festers because they wouldn't even consider it.
I've
they
seen
wouldn't
that
even
before.
consider it.
Right, and some people look down on therapy, like
For sure.
like parents wouldn't be approving sometimes,
Definitely.
I can go into that later.
Also, I
But
think
We-
it's
we
also
talked
a
about
cultural
that.
thing coming into play.
yeah, that's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
Yeah, culture can definitely be very detrimental to our health.
Traditions,
always- Sometimes tradition isn't all that good.
I agree with you.
Newsflash, folks.
So, would you like to go into your experience with the
Well,
counseling, or?
can we go into yours first? I've been
Yeah,
curious
we
about
could,
yours
yeah.
for like a week. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So, because I went first, and we saw the same.
Exact
Counselor.
therapist. Yes.
Right. Okay. So, basically, I only went one time, right? And I have my next one this Friday. Possibly. She said
Okay.
she needs to move sometime. Whatever. I'm probably gonna have
Okay.
it this
Okay.
week as well. But, okay. So, long story short, I did not like this psychologist that much. So
Wait, so it was worse than your intake because you said you loved your intake.
I really liked the intake woman that I got.
Should we explain the intake?
Whoa,
by the way?
the intake. Yeah, I've never heard of this before. What's
Okay,
it?
so-
Intake.
The way it works, you can't just go in and just see a random counselor, right?
So is this like an evaluation?
Right, we take a test like we just did, right?
Mhm.
It's like a bunch of multiple choice, and then you put slightly agree or disagree, right?
Mm-hmm.
You answer that, then you say like what kind of goals you might be working on, want to work on or whatever, right? Stuff like that. You submit it,
Mm-hmm.
so they can like assess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
So-
you
So
take a
they know
second
what
part.
they're jumping into,
Right,
like when
then-
they're helping you.
Right. Then they
Okay.
take a second part, which is actually talking to a counselor, and it's basically a lot of the same questions.
Is it how it is in the shows and movies? You're like
No.
sitting on the couch, or is it?
Yes, in that way, yes. But how they present
We have
psychologists
to-
in movies and stuff is not that.
We have
accurate.
to. Well, we have to really discuss this because my intake guy was completely different than your intake girl. Because my intake guy was the stereotypical German fucking Freud.
Just keep going.
It's okay, but
We'll edit it.
the Freud, he's the Freudian type,
Wait, so
really quiet, really introvert, and he was really like respectful.
He seemed like analytic.
Okay,
Yes,
but wait,
yes, very
was he
much so.
psychoanalytic though?
It's not like he took that kind of approach because we have to realize is all he was doing was listening to me, and then he
I don't
gave
know.
a very very minor like, I agree with what you're saying. It is probably this route, but he obviously didn't want to go deep into it because that's not the point of the intake.
Okay, good. All right,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
he sounds like a good.
He was I like him a lot. But
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
I like them better than the therapist. But that's
Okay.
beside the point.
No, that's really interesting.
We'll
I
get
like my
into that.
intake person as well a lot more. The thing I felt like my intake lady was very, like compassionate, like, and she kind of understood what I was saying, and stuff like that. Like,
So was it she just really good at
Empathetic.
empathy?
I
Was
think she
she
was
just really
empathetic.
good at empathy, or do you think she actually like understood it very well to the point where
I think she
maybe
could.
she's seen it before?
I think she could either. Yeah, it's either she's seen it before or maybe she felt something similar.
was well
Because it seems like she
researched, okay.
understands what the hell I was talking about.
Okay.
So, but wait a sec. When I went to the actual first meeting, right, with the therapist now, right, just talking with her, I found her more like abrasive, and kind of I would describe her as callous, like, right, not because she's mean or anything like that, but she's just a little insensitive about how she does stuff or how she asks certain questions, like what words she uses and stuff like that.
Are you okay with getting into specifics? Because I have to, like, for mine, it was, I totally see what you're getting at. Because there were many times during it where I thought exactly the same as you. But at the same time...
I know it's no fault of hers. She's not actually trying to be mean.
Oh,
I just feel like she's a little insensitive.
like I don't know what you're saying. It makes me feel like that therapist saw you as patient number 358,
I feel like
right?
a little
Instead
bit.
of actually
Really?
involving yourself
Really?
Mm-hmm.
in the situation.
That's a good way to describe it.
But
'cause
I
felt
didn't
the
get
exact
that.
opposite way from the woman I took the intake with. I felt like she was really nice. She could be like, not like she could be like my friend, but I felt like I could look up to her like,
as a close acquaintance, maybe
like somebody
But
in
not
my
a
family
friend.
or something
Okay.
like that.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like I could trust her and stuff
Okay,
like that.
okay.
This woman seems more like he said.
Okay. Once again, to make things clear for the audience, this woman that he went to for actual therapy is the same one that I went to. But
Right, good.
my distinction between my intake person and this therapist, the intake person was actually the patient. Like that's how he saw me. He saw me as a patient.
Mm-hmm.
But
I see.
strangely, I don't know, I felt comfortable with that. So I don't know if it's like an individual difference between me and you.
It might just be how they did it.
Maybe, but I don't.
So wait, you really like the therapist?
The therapist, see, the thing is, the therapist spoke to me more like she was a friend. But she also took it less seriously like a friend would, if that makes sense.
I can see that a little bit, yeah.
And I think the reason she did that was not to be insensitive. It wasn't like an insensitivity thing. I think it was specifically because it was a therapy session. She wants to... It's the first one, so she wants to gauge, is this a real problem, or is this a problem that a lot of other people go through? They're both important to tackle, but one is clinical and one isn't. You know what I mean? That's how she saw it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Because you can't give a clinical approach to something that's a regular problem. You get me?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I understand what she was doing and everything like that, but I just...
But me and you have different problems, so that's why I'm asking for the specifics.
No, yeah, that could be a lot of it too.
Weird.
Yeah.
Wait, so would you say the more unique your problem is, like the more attention they pay to it, I guess?
No, we have different problems, so she'd approach them differently, like... Or talk about them differently. She'll have different questions for him or me.
Take this from the perspective of the therapist. You get a constant flow of patients with all their problems. And for each patient, that problem is unique to them. But when you take in consideration all the patients, you might have 80% of them aren't so unique anymore. So would you say that therapist would not care as much for those 80%? And focus, involving themselves more in those other 20% that's, doesn't come by as often, right? Just because, a person, oh, finally I get to do something different.
It could be. I think I had a similar thought when I was in the session. Like you said, she just sees me like a number. It's that kind of thing where she's used to seeing the same kind of problem, so it's not taken as, personally, I guess. But that's an interesting point. We can't know, right? Because we're not her.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting point.
But let's say if I went to the therapist, that's the last thing I'd want, right? Like someone to just treat, for a therapist to treat me like, oh,
I agree with you.
Here's another one,
I agree.
But
I do agree with that too. But fuck. So what I was thinking, I was gonna talk about body language, because maybe the way she treated you was she treated you like with that condescending sort of attitude. And you could see it. You could actually visibly see it. But with me, it was like on and off. Sometimes she acted like genuinely like she was my best friend. And other times, like there was no censor. There was no like filter or anything like that. So then I could open up there. But other times she would go into that therapist mode where I would say something and she would just sit back and listen. But I don't know. I think it's good to have that balance. So that's just my take.
I want to know. So when you're in a session, how does that etiquette? Can you curse words allowed?
Yes,
yeah?
I think so.
Absolutely.
And the therapist, he bounces off, or he or she bounces off some curse words too.
I didn't curse at all, and she cursed first.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't expect it.
She got very personal with me, and it was like
her sharing her personal experience with
you. You're not supposed to do that as a psychologist.
She never said anything. It's hard to explain. I would. So okay. To get into it, basically, I was talking about thoughts, in general, thoughts that I was having. And it wasn't anything dangerous, which is why at the time, I probably seemed really healthy to her. But there were times when it was bad, which is why I felt a little weird that she downplayed it sometimes. But other than that, when she did take it seriously, she actually was the one who was prying more and willing to dive in more. So if I mentioned something, I would hint at something, or imply it, she would immediately target that and just outright say it for me, which I actually kind of appreciate because I'm a bit of a quiet person. So.
I actually would appreciate that too.
Yeah,
it wasn't like that.
Oh, okay, that explains a lot.
Well, clarify, you mean give an immediate answer to something, or reply quickly?
The thing is, it might be it sounds weird. This is the weird way people act sometimes, but when I'm talking to somebody about a problem I have or something like that, I want to talk about it with them, but if they ask me, I'm just gonna be dismissive. I want them to ask multiple times. Actually, yeah, it sounds like
100%.
That sounds like I'm being petty or something like that, but that's just how it is. I'm more comfortable if they ask me multiple times, if they say, you can really talk to me, it's okay. I know something's wrong.
This
just
might
to
be
reassure you.
Like, yeah, stuff like that. Coax it out of me, like, not to
You
yell
want-
at me. Or anything
I'll
like that.
go in expecting them for me to share whatever I want.
No, me too. Us too. We feel comfortable, I mean, let me speak
But
for
you
myself.
still want
I feel,
that reassurance.
I like it when they ask me multiple times to show that they're actually interested and concerned and stuff like
okay.
that.
Well,
It sounds manipulative, I think. I don't know, but
I
No,
wondered,
it's not.
is there also
okay.
an important distinction between the therapist answering right away and the therapist thinking about it and then answering?
yes, because even in an argument, when somebody, like a debate or argument or whatever, right? It's very important to be silent sometimes, because let's say I say something and you're the therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might want to take a sec, like whatever it is I say, especially if it's outlandish, you might want to take a sec, because before you say anything, and just look at me or look at your notes or whatever, right? Because one, you can process it, and two, I need to process it because it's the last thing that I just heard. So if it's something way out there, I'm gonna be like, and you're silent and you just look at me. You don't even need to say anything. I might clarify, add more information. I often find, and I read this one time, that the best question is silence. If you don't say anything, somebody will clarify and keep going.
Yeah, they can infer something from that for sure.
Right.
So yeah, and also the therapist doesn't want to, be impulsive. If they say the first thing that comes to their mind, then that's kind of a sign they're not really putting reason into it in a way.
That, and you don't want to be the person who's talking all the time. You want the person to keep going. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about the
Very true.
client.
Right,
So
right.
There's a,
That was a good question.
wait, but may I say, okay, what you were saying before, first, I perfectly relate to that, right? With you want the person to you want to know that, I guess, the person actually does want to delve into that topic, because you don't want to become like a motor mouth or something. That's my perspective.
Well,
Yeah,
That's
a little
my-
bit.
What do you
my
mean?
personal-
What do you mean motor mouth? Who's being the motor mouth?
Uh,
The client or the therapist?
This is not really client therapist. I'm just talking about what he was talking about with conversation. If
Oh,
someone
okay.
if someone is like, if someone's
He just keeps rattling off.
yeah, you don't want to be that
He's
guy.
saying he doesn't want to be that
You don't
guy.
want to be that guy.
Right.
So that's why you might like wait a little bit for them to pry more.
Well, knowing me, sometimes I just kind of lose myself and end up,
Yeah.
hoarding up all the air, all the space.
That's
just
fine
keep
too.
on talking.
It's just a different personality thing, which is why, like, when you said that, I immediately thought of the test.
Oh, the five
five-factor.
factor personality test.
Right.
That's-
We were talking
okay.
about that a little before the show.
Right, let's go into that. But I just want to say, sometimes I have the same. Like, it's weird. I'm not gonna say I'm bipolar, but I have a lot of duality type things. I think, like, so in certain situations, I'm gonna be like we discussed, how I'm like appearing closed, but I want to be open. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I want them to ask multiple times, and I'm gonna be reserved. But sometimes I'll be like that especially with introverted people, like one we know. But,
Yes,
especially
okay.
with introverted people, I find that I'm just rattling off like I'm a chatterbox or whatever.
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I don't really appreciate it in myself. Like, that's probably not good, but
I don't know.
sometimes
You have to.
I do get like that.
I feel like that's just like part of growing as a person. You have to know the balance, but yeah,
True.
that's for
That's good.
everyone, really.
All right, let's go into 5-factor.
Okay.
Right. So I
Alright,
mean,
so
I took it a little while back, but I still have my results. And I don't know, like, I don't know what you guys got. Maybe you could share, and then I can give.
Do you want to explain what the 5-factor model
So,
personality is?
first psych, the way that they describe it is they use the acronym OCEAN. It's openness to experiences. So, say you want to try new exotic things a lot. It's also about artistic expression and wanting to explore. Maybe explore yourself or the world. Who knows? But what was it? The next one's conscientiousness. This is one you'll see. This is one you can actually see a lot. Openness to experience, maybe you can really see that. But conscientiousness, you'll notice that in a person. It's just them being very careful and considerate. But there's definitely a lot of like, sort of
Like, you mean,
implied
like being
aspects.
self-critical of themselves.
Yes, yeah, actually, that's part of it.
Like doubting something they did, regretting.
Yeah,
Like that type of thing.
they also want to be very organized because they want to help their future self, and they want to help everyone around them as well. So that's conscientiousness.
And the E, I'm assuming that's extroversion?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's they all have their counters, by the way. In extroversion's case, it's pretty obvious it's introversion.
Right, because the way the test works is those 5 that we're outlining, right? You can score high or low.
Yeah.
Right, so let's say you score high in extroversion, you're extroverted. But if you scroll a lower score, like 10% or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or it's below 50 is going to be low, but you're going to be introverted, yeah.
We should
So I'm
probably.
assuming the opposite of being conscientious being like something like, I don't know, like impulsive?
Inconsiderate, maybe.
Inconsiderate,
Yes,
impulsive?
yes. But what you have to realize with this test, I should probably mention it now. The test doesn't. It's not like a positivity thing. Like it's not like a health thing. It's simply to gauge what type of personality you have. So
Right.
if you lean towards one way or the other, that's not really a problem unless it's so extreme that it's crippling for you. But you'll know that. Like you'll figure that out.
That's when personality disorder comes into play.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They say it's an exaggerated aspect. So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so if you're like 100% on something, that's like really
That
bad?
could
if
be
you
a
have
sign.
certain combinations
Mhm.
of things,
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I don't know the specifics, but
So like, let's say you're very high on extroversion, but very low on the conscientiousness. So like, well, I don't know. That would be like I guess, I don't know, a very social person who's very impulsive. I guess I don't know.
It
yeah,
could be.
yeah, but like a personality disorder, like one of them would be like narcissism, right? So they would score high on openness to experience, I think, and then extroversion as well, but low on conscientiousness. You know what I'm saying? I don't recall exactly, but like if we think schizoid is obviously low on extroversion.
Oh yeah, that or antisocial or anything
Right.
like
They
that.
have links.
Anything they have clusters and like
Right.
if you're in that cluster, yeah, you'll know.
Mhm.
All right. You can see we're not very professional. We don't know the very details.
Hey,
I mean,
just
you
'cause I
guys
didn't
know. You
memorize
guys know
it.
more than me, so
Yeah.
it's better than nothing. All right. So next one. Let me see here.
Oh,
It's
wait.
agreeableness, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's
yeah.
up with agreeableness?
Okay, so that's basically going to be like how well you work with people. A very high agreeableness couldn't be bad. Like I was watching a video on it, and he gave examples of how high agreeableness can actually be bad, because that sounds a little counterintuitive. One example would be like, let's say your wife cheats on you or something like that, and then she says, she doesn't even apologize, or she just says, sorry, very unempathetic. Yeah, she says something like that. If you're way high agreeable,
yeah.
like 100% or whatever, you're just gonna be like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
so,
okay. We make mistakes.
Highly agreeable might be like a pushover.
Uh-huh.
or someone who's maybe too dependent, I guess.
Right, yeah.
On others, because
Okay.
the opposite to it, like with introversion, extroversion, the opposite to agreeableness is assertiveness.
Oh,
So that's
yeah,
why it's
good.
important to
Right.
have.
I actually want to discuss. You talk a little bit more about agreeableness, but I want to finish up all these other
Yeah.
parts. So the next one I see is neuroticism.
That's the last one, yeah.
Right.
Neuroticism, yeah.
So it says here, person's tendency to experience negative emotions, including fear, sadness, anxiety, guilt, and shame. I mean,
Yeah, and the opposing one for that is emotional stability. So that one sounds like almost like neuroticism should automatically be negative, but honestly, there are healthy applications to it as well.
Right, you
'Cause-
shouldn't have it too high.
Yeah, it can, if you pair it up with conscientiousness, it can keep you more organized and more on track with your goals. So like if you're going to med school, you're gonna see a lot of doctors that are very neurotic. Is that a problem?
right.
That they kind of need that for their job. So yeah.
so I guess we can kind of, since we discussed all the parts, we can discuss our results. And I still have my results from a while ago, and I mean, for the most part, everything's about 50-50. I mean, it's a little bit over.
Oh, really?
But except for openness, I have 83%, which is like a lot higher than all the other branches.
Can I see that?
Wait.
Wow, that's really interesting that you scored near the middle.
For everything?
I wouldn't even think
Well,
that.
not
for all,
Oh,
exactly.
for
but you
most,
can
I
see
see.
he tends towards the middle right there.
Oh, but the major one I guess was
the openness.
Right.
oh that I can see it.
All right,
yeah.
so you want to give us your...
I mean, I'm kind of surprised because I thought, I mean, in regards to neuroticism, I thought I was always, not so negative. I thought I was going to score pretty low. I don't know, extroversion. I was also surprised with. I always thought myself more as an introvert, but I see that maybe I was wrong, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean that's really all I gotta say, because mine was pretty simple. How about yours?
Mine was very all over the place. So for the 5-factor one, I started off with extroversion being 2 out of 100, which is pretty impressive.
Wow.
See, this is why I didn't like that one.
You didn't like that?
No, I didn't like this version of the test.
Oh, I see. Okay. Something foolish just happened. I'm sorry.
Sorry, technical difficulties, right? Alright, so
Okay,
continue.
silence.
No, continue.
We're on to emotional stability, which this is why?
It's the opposite of neuroticism.
Oh yeah, so that's the one that I was very confused with because I got pretty much smack dab in the middle. It was 50-50. So, I mean, I like that I have some neuroticism, but I mean, and it's also cool that I'm pretty balanced. It's interesting just because I think I've grown from before. I think it's like a sign of growth for me at least.
Well, development's always good. You know,
Yeah.
stagnancy is not always necessarily a good thing.
The next one was agreeableness, which I got like a 90 for. So I don't know if I fall into the unhealthy category there, but
That's interesting. I thought I would be really agreeable, but you're more than me.
why? Was yours?
No, mine's 83.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
No, but I do like that. I can see it. See, for these first three, I can actually see it. And conscientiousness is the same way. I got high on that one. But the last one's the one that's like strange. It says intellect and imagination 80, which is this one does it differently, but that's openness basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably openness to experience.
Why? What was yours?
Mine's right there, 92.
92. Okay, I can see it for you.
Yeah, because there are 5 factors, right? So OCEAN, right? Ocean, right? But each factor has 6 facets.
Mm-hmm.
So one of openness to experiences facets, I think, is going to be like experimental, or whatever.
Like 6 different categories.
Right,
okay.
right. Of 6 littler categories that make up this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like one for neuroticism, I think is like obsessive thoughts.
Oh,
and would those categories depend on like what's your like how high or low the percentage was?
Right. So basically, we answered all the questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the factors are more specific. This is a general overview.
Okay.
If we were to look at the 6 factors, for each one, we'd get a more detailed thing. That's why I really like this type of test.
Mm-hmm.
The one we took online didn't let us see the exact results, like with the factors, but it let us see the ocean.
Because I took another personality test. It was called the Myers-Briggs.
Right, he
test.
took that too.
Yes, I took it as well.
I don't like that one as much.
I love that one.
I thought it was a bit easier comprehended because they just give you 4 letters and that's it. You fall into that category. I think they also have some other smaller categories you can fall into, like turbulent or assertive. But other than that, it was pretty easy to comprehend. I don't know. Angie, do you ever take that test?
I did. I took it when I took AP Psych. I don't recall the results.
I took it recently. I got INTFJ, which it's basically
INT what?
FJ.
Oh, okay.
Which let me check it. I still have it here, but it's more on the introverted side.
Because I think the I stands for introverted.
Yeah, and then you have it's intuitive, more feeling and less like logic based, and then I think J is more judging as opposed to prospecting. So this one is saying that I'm not like open to new experiences. I'd rather be safe and cautious, which I agree with more. That's why I was confused with the openness.
Okay, so if we looked at the facets, like I said, other ones will be high for you, but that one will be low.
And the way that mine did it, the openness was more of a measurement of like imagination. So I like how imaginative you are.
Yeah.
So that's weird too.
Would also be a indicator of like intuition. Because intuition is kind of like that internal process.
I guess so, yeah.
I feel like
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's really tough because intuition doesn't really fall into any of these for this one. So I don't know. What's your opinion on 5-factor now?
No, 5-factor I think is the best personality test.
It's the best. No,
yeah, this one's really good. That's they use this a lot in actual counseling.
Oh, that's true. It is clinical, yeah. But
and if you compare it to Myers-Briggs, this one is way better.
I'm going to have to say that.
What, are they using in clinical?
This one they're gonna use more often than Myers-Briggs. Yeah, because this one.
Oh, they actually use Myers, because I thought Myers-Briggs was just like some kind of like fun thing you can use.
No, Meyer and Briggs were psychologists.
Right. No, I know that, but like in use today, like, I didn't know it was actually used in some places in psychology. I thought it was just like a little internet test that you can have fun with, because it's like it was made a long time ago.
No, I think
might be a little outdated.
I think they do use it a little bit. I'm not sure, but you can look at the research literature because there are studies on it. I was watching videos on it and stuff. There are studies on Myers-Briggs, and there are a lot of studies on 5-factor model and how they correlate, like we said, to personality disorders. So this could be very good as a quick look if you're just looking at a new patient or something like that. I think it's very good. Of course, it's not going to tell you everything.
Yeah. Wait, what's the other quiz that I'm thinking of?
A third one?
So
maybe not third one.
Myers-Briggs, the ocean.
Yeah, I don't think there's a third.
I never heard. I mean, you guys would know better than me, but like I've never heard of a third test.
Well, anyway, should we?
I still like the 16 personality one better, but that's just my take.
Okay, well, we've discussed that. I wanted to jump back onto something that interested me before, the agreeableness part of the 5-factor test, specifically because it was pretty strongly related to what we talked about in our last episode when we talked about the role of authority and parent-child relationships and how it actually affects the child later on when they become an adult. So I don't know. I mean, you guys maybe can give a little perspective. But I think that authority, how a child views authority in, when they're a lot younger, right, when their parents are looking after them, really impacts strongly how they see authority later in life and as an adult.
Did you want to start this? Because my take, I wanted to go from the corporal punishment sort of aspect. Is it okay to even endorse that? It is?
No, I'm saying it's very interesting to talk about it.
Okay.
Wait a sec. Well, basically, I don't have much to say because I do agree with the professor over here. So yeah, we agree on that topic about the influences of parenting and stuff like that. In that case, okay. Anyway, no, but wait, you wanted to talk about parenting styles. Did you want to talk about just punishment versus reward?
Really anything, but I wanted to focus on that because
go into that first, and we can go deeper in.
I noticed that for a lot of people who are shown a lot of love when they're kids and have like almost no punishment at all, even if they are a bit spoiled, they usually end up on the higher end of things, in my opinion.
Wait, say those requirements again.
Like even if they're a little bit spoiled, even if they're extremely spoiled,
and they're not punished,
almost at all.
Okay.
They still end up really great to the point where they're like above most other kids.
In your experience,
in my experience, that's anecdotal.
I think that might be more of a correlation, because if you're spoiled, right? Yeah. We're assuming that those parents are rich.
That
are enabling him, right? So
poor parents can't spoil.
And guess what?
That's actually
rich mommy and daddy. They're gonna get you a job, right, after you graduate college, which obviously they're going to college. Right? Or even if they need to go to college. Mm-hmm. So, that's why I think it'd be more of a correlation.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Did you want to speak more on this topic?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the only reason I mention it at all is because, like, I noticed there's people who think it's almost necessary to punish them. But, like, clearly with it, if they can still turn out good without it, then...
Well, that kind of question can hop into the free will determinism topic, but we'll discuss that later.
Yeah, we'll bring that up.
But we still want to get the like a nice chunk of meat about authority in child parent relationships.
Can I comment on the punishment?
Oh yeah, go sure.
And then we'll jump right into authority. Mm-hmm. So about the punishment, right? This is why. So wait, so you agree that that kind of corporal punishment isn't good?
Yes, but I have some scientific backing too.
Okay, good. Okay, I have some kind of logical backing because this. I realized this taking AP Psych because I wrote it down as an answer for one of the quizzes, right?
Right.
But I didn't really answer what the question was asking. I misunderstood it, so I got that question wrong. But actually forced me to think because I didn't know the answer. Right, forced me to think, and I kind of reasoned it out. And this is basically what it was, right? So this is the idea I not really came up with, but sort of realized. and of course other people have said this, but this is the thing. So when you have corporal punishment, right? When you have physical punishments, stuff like that, right? For a kid that does something bad, like let's say he actually does something bad, like he hits another kid or steals something or whatever, right? Something bad that they did, and then the punishment and then they get punished for it, right? And it's a very physical thing, right?
Right.
That the parent administers. So now the kid grows up, whatever, and this continues until they get out of the house. Now they're out of the house, right? And they're living without parents. So they're living without that mommy and daddy who would hit them when they did something wrong. So now the thing that was inhibiting them from doing something wrong, they don't have it anymore.
Right.
So once they're out of there, they really didn't learn anything. They were just adapting to circumstances not to get punished.
Okay.
But I'm saying the opposite approach would be, like we were talking about with reason and stuff like that, along with anarchy, right? I feel like this goes along with it because it's like order and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
Organization. How we teach our kids, I think, should not be through punishment. Should be through like logical reasoning. Like you shouldn't do that because, and then allow them to understand why it's actually wrong.
Ingrain
not
them
just that
with
it's wrong.
some morals,
Right.
basically.
Explain to them.
Instead of just a punishment reward system.
Right. That, and it's not good to just say something's good and something's bad because I said it. You need to explain why.
Yes.
And then they'll carry those values with them,
Have some
even when
reasoning.
mommy and daddy aren't around.
Some evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to address the point you said. You said that the punishment is physical. I mean, it doesn't have to be physical.
I was talking about physical ones, but
Well,
you're right.
okay.
I think you could apply to more.
I actually...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Can I...
Like I think a type of parenting or a type of punishment that focuses rather on manipulating the child's environment, not just hitting them. Like for example, taking away some kind of gaming console or some kind of privilege.
Right, negative punishment.
Right, and then you explain it to them. Not just coming in, shut up and obey. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm downstairs. You stay in the room. Right. Not that type of situation. But I think if you take the previous arrangement where you take away or give something, not hitting, and explain it, I think that's a lot better than simply hitting.
It's an improvement, but here's what I was going to get into to build off what the prof was saying with don't laugh. What the prof was saying.
Bold of you to call me prof,
With-
huh?
Yeah,
Mr. Guest.
dropped in the title there.
Oh wait.
No, you got it right, but you just
No, it's
abbreviated.
about you though.
Oh no, I'm
With,
Angie.
you mentioned Angie. You mentioned negative punishment earlier, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to get into. If you look
I
at it,
don't think punishment's good, even if it's positive or negative. I like reinforcement.
yes. Okay, from
Well,
a
obviously, reinforcement's
behavioral.
always a bit more like lighthearted, right? It's more of a.
Yeah.
It's more.
Yes, but there's evidence that in general, we're looking at this from a behavioral perspective. So they've explored this earlier in the past, right? So what psychiatrists have researched is basically 90% of the time that's just a random number, not an actual statistic, but the idea is that reinforcement is way more impactful and way more effective than punishment, first of all. But second of all, something I learned very recently, in terms of how our brain works, the idea of fun as a reward as opposed to the idea of an external reward is actually way more effective. So
Really?
the thing is, if you teach them why something could be enjoyable, or like let's just say they don't want to do their homework, if you give them a method that makes homework more of an actual, I guess, not of an actual challenge for them, but something that actually eases them into the learning process and
It
experience.
becomes a necessity in order to get something. You mean?
More like you just feed it to them in a way that's more digestible for them. You're gonna have to figure that out based on your kid, of course. But something that's, if you find a way to integrate with something fun, that'll last a lot longer with them. If you just give them some I don't know, give them some sort of pat on the back after they're done or something like that, that's fine, but it's not nearly as strong.
Because what I was thinking,
That dissolves more easily.
when I become a parent, I mean, hopefully I'll become a parent in the future. I was thinking of involving a point system, which a lot of parents use, right? But the thing is, I want to include myself in the point system, so I can't be planted as the villain, right? As we're all just following some kind of morality, right, that someone placed on us, right? I'm not going to reveal to them that I made the point system. I'm enforcing it, right? That I'm just following it with them. And that way, the kid takes the example of me doing it, right? And that I follow the system, and then I get rewards, meaning I give myself rewards, all right? And he sees that, and he'll do the same thing. He would do something that I want him or her to do in order to get some kind of reward.
That's interesting. I like how you're incorporated into
this. Is a topic as well, modeling. This is also a psych thing.
Yeah.
This is another thing I was going to mention is just that as a parent, you have to reflect these values yourself. And I know that seems obvious, but a lot of parents, they really completely dismiss that aspect of it. So if you are modeling yourself to your kid, that's one of the strongest ways that these lessons will imprint on them.
And there have been studies on that?
Yeah, a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's huge research for that one, actually, even in animal minds.
I gotta look up that because that's something that I just kind of came up just by thinking. So it'd be fun to see some actual formal thinking behind that.
Sure.
But we kind of veered off a bit the subject of authority, the impact of authority relationships in childhood, and then how that transforms to adulthood. So, okay, let me
still think I'm with him on this, that it'll dissolve no matter which way you go. The heavy authority or the light authority, there's going to be parts that dissolve when the kid grows older naturally. That's why you have to go for the more value approach. You know what I mean? They have to have the reasons in their mind.
No.
When they encounter it,
exactly. But you might have some aspects dissolve, right? But those aspects, before they dissolve, they impact some new development. I think they impact some new development.
Yes.
So that the parenting would still have an impact later in your adulthood. So because when you're a little child, for most of your childhood, you spend with your parents, and you learn a great deal of how to interact with people. Right?
Yeah,
when you're with your parents and you see how they interact with you and other people.
The way I would say, the way I would put his point is that during parenting, or when you're a child, right? That's when you learn about yourself and the world, right? Mm-hmm. So if they learn that the relationship between them and the world is an authoritarian one, where something else should rule them, or something else should give them orders and stuff like that, it can leave a lasting impact.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah. You get a perception of what authority is,
right,
when you're a kid,
and your relationship to authority. Should you challenge it? Do your parents right? Because that can be enforced, right? Should you challenge it, or should you always be punished when you challenge it?
Okay, but I feel like then you have to start thinking about in the wide scale, sort of when they're out in the actual world. How important is authority?
Well, their reaction to authority is very important.
That's true.
So they perceive it right. So they have a perception of authority. They turn 18. All right, they're out. They start. Well, it's not binary like that, but they become more open to the outside world, and they become less involved in in their family world, in their family life, and they see authority all around them, whether it be something that the government does, whether it be something that they do, and then they have to think about what will the police do, right? And you have and you would apply your perception of what authority is to see how moral or immoral what the police want to do or what the government wants to do. No? Yes or no?
This is completely agreeable right here. Yeah.
He answered with a yes. That's on record.
Yes.
So, as I think I've mentioned before in the last episode, that a person can do a complete 180 turn or 178 degree turn. We don't know. Very, very. It's a bit variable, right? To how a person reacts to their how their parents implemented authority into the household. So a person, let's say parents of a child were really implemented a very strict authority, right? Shut up and obey type authority, right? And that child, let's say they grow up and they finally go out into the real world, and then they, with their perception of authority, and they could do a complete turnaround, become staunch anarchist, right? Because they see what they've dissociated from their family life, and they see what their parents are and how they treated you, and you want to do an absolute negation of that, which I think is a bit. Which I think it might be a bit irrational because you wanna assess this. You wanna assess your world in a logical view that you would see that make it completely correct. So absolutes aren't always good.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, I agree.
And regarding absolutes, I don't think. My assessment of reality, right? Absolutes aren't always the best thing. So in the same way, I think the combination of punishment and rehabilitation into parenting would create the best thing for the child, because rehabilitation would completely starve the child of a perception of punishment, which is going to be ever present in the real world.
Yeah, but isn't that good to show them that punishment isn't good? Like, you shouldn't inflict punishment upon them.
Yeah, well, actually, now that I think about it, I guess how are they going to interact with other people in their daily life? Forget about the government.
They would have to interact with punishment in some way in order to perceive it.
Right, so you explain it to them and things like that, but you don't have to let them suffer under it more.
Here's the thing: I don't think explanation always works. They actually need to become part of the process to understand it. Right? If you alienate them by just explaining it to them, I don't think it's going to work.
Example.
Of course,
what about?
But they'll see other kids get punished.
That's still alienating the child from the process.
Well,
they view the process outside.
Hold on, wait. Okay, so,
and punishment doesn't always have to be something suffering. It doesn't.
I would say suffering is the opposite of pleasure. So if
your kid is playing with
pleasure,
what? Uh-oh.
If something's decreasing pleasure, it's going to increase suffering. So that's what I'm saying. So any negative thing would increase suffering. That's the terminology I'm using.
Let's just say...
And is negativity a bad thing?
Okay,
I don't think so.
Wait 1 sec. We can replace punishment with abuse here.
Abuse is taken to a very extreme now.
That's why you have to think
punishment can be abusive.
Like in degrees,
of course it can be abusive.
Or it might necessarily be abusive.
But, of course, everything in moderation again. We're rejecting the absolutes.
Yeah, but I don't think you should...
You have to set these degrees... You have to set these degrees very clearly.
But the thing is, you have to expose your child to something bad. Because that's what as I said, that's what gives identity to all the facets of our reality, right? In order to give something bad, in order for the child to perceive something good, they have to have an understanding of bad, right? Which, again, I agree that punishment is a bad thing. I'd want to avoid that, but I think it would be the best thing combining rehabilitation and punishment, not in every situation, right? But integrating that into just in general how you raise your kid, into giving them a perception of both punishment and rehabilitation as they go out into the real world and start interacting with more people.
I just don't. I might agree with you, but the thing is, I can't see where you would just use punishment instead of rehabilitation or incorporate both, like you say. Like I can't think of an example where it'd be better to use punishment than.
Well, what I mean by combining, I don't mean in one situation.
Right. Okay. Can you give me a situation where punishment would be useful?
Okay. I can say that if the child lied to me, right, I would give him a punishment, either a positive or a negative. I wouldn't say hitting is anything that should be used, right? Because that's. I'm sure they'll at some point get into a fight or something, but I don't want to be that parent that does the fighting, right? Gives them the perception of what pain is,
what violence is too.
Physical pain.
Yeah.
But a positive punishment would be to add some kind of chores, right? Or right?
Yes.
Or negative punishment, taking away something that they like.
Yeah.
Right. So they would have they would understand consequences.
Okay.
And we know that reinforcement isn't always something that happens in
the real world.
In real world, we also know that punishment is a constant in the real world. We always have to suffer some kind of consequences from the actions that we have done.
My take is that whether your perspective or your perspective is right, I think that you need to set very clear degrees to things. First of all, you need to outline this beforehand, so that you're not encountering it on the spot.
Absolutely.
So
that's the smartest thing.
How about an example? The kid's not doing well on his homework, so you take away his Xbox, like what you were saying before.
Well, I think that's just dumb, because you haven't assessed the situation. Why is he doing bad?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say.
Understanding and evaluate.
Yes, that's what a parent should do.
That's why I think rehabilitation would be best all the time, because we find the root of the problem and then work to remove that and stuff like that.
We resolve
rather than the punishment.
Again,
that would be rehabilitation in my mind.
But then again, you're sacrificing the child's perception of punishment,
which
I think is also important.
But it's like saying, I'm not saying punishment. I'm not claiming that punishment overall is abuse. I might believe that, but I'm not saying that right now.
Well,
I'm saying it's like saying abuse because you can make the
abuse is
same
an extreme
argument.
of punishment.
You can make the same argument though that I can't not. There's going to be abuse in the world, and they're going to get abused in some way in the outside world, right? So I need to expose them to that. That's you can use the same argument. I would disagree with that because you would be inflicting. You would be teaching them a little bit, but you would be teaching them also about abuse, but you'd be teaching them that parents abuse children and things like that.
Oh yeah.
In loving relationships that are perfectly fine, parents abuse children or something like that.
No,
Or
not
in general
abuse.
love.
But wait, I'm saying
No,
if we use
what he's
abuse
saying
as an
is-
example.
Because I think that punishment that the child won't view negatively in regards to punishment in general. If the parent establishes that they are rationally, that they are intellectually dominant, right? If the child can understand that, wow, my parent knows a lot of stuff, I will follow them. Like the child rationally decides that the parent it is best to follow your parent, right? Because if you just have shut up and obey type punishment, the child doesn't know what does the parent know, what does the parent not know about me, right? And in that way, the shut up and obey type punishment is becoming a homogenous blanket of just negativity, right? That is not applied to any certain aspect, right? And in that way, when a child starts to grow up and they have this perception of authority and punishment to be this blanket, the homogenous that just applies to them, whatever they do, they question everything they do. And they see it and they question it negatively.
I agree with all of that.
It really stunts.
Well, that's
any,
good to hear. We always like compatibility here.
It really stunts any sort of variety approaches. Yeah, it limits your perspective. So
Right.
there's a.
But then, to elaborate on the homework and rehabilitation, that if you punish a child for getting stuff wrong in his homework, right? That's completely miscalculated, right? If the parent, thinks to himself, why did he do bad in his homework? Was it because he just didn't want to do it? He didn't want to do it, or he doesn't care, or is he having trouble, or he does care, but he's just unable to, right? So when you have this type of parenting, right, it definitely helps the child in the long run when they grow up, right? Because you always apply things, interaction rationally.
Of course. Okay.
And when the child grows up, I think they'll probably apply their interactions to other people in the same way. So everything is a lot more. So all their actions are a lot more accurate. It's not just blankets. Homogeneous blankets of actions are applied to anything. General.
It's not just an umbrella
Yeah.
sort of term. Yeah.
I agree.
Get what you're saying. Do you
So-
want to conclude, or are we still?
Well,
we
no,
still
we still
have.
got mind-body
think-
duality.
I like.
Okay.
how about-
We can go
This
a
is
little
gonna be-
over an hour.
Let's go. Wait, I
Ooh.
think we should go into mind body. I think we should save determinism free will for its own episode.
Okay.
All right.
So, bit of silence.
No. We
No,
don't need
it's
to.
fine.
So we're just gonna edit it out.
Okay, so now we're gonna go into the mind body debate in psychology. So can you outline for us, Dr. Yeetski, what that is?
That's not my name, but it's okay. The
Jeez, bro.
Well, I don't know. I
the
see in your application here to be our guest. I see you have a lot of different names. 10 different names. So and it says here that you want to be called Dr. Yeetski in your application.
Sorry,
So
bro.
I concur. Wait, no. What does that mean?
That means you agree with me.
No. I concur.
Okay, that's pretty authoritarian of you. But
What?
look,
No,
okay,
it's contrary.
sure.
Not
But
authentic.
wait, what's your question?
I said, can you explain to the viewer what the mind body debate is?
Doctor, I didn't
myself-
expect you of this.
Should I just read the thing here?
Yeah, I myself am very completely
Well, okay.
detached from this debate.
Okay,
I see.
mind-body duality is saying that as a being, you have two versions of existence. You have this, a metaphysical realm where it's a collection of your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, right? And then you have the material version of yourself. The biological version of yourself.
All right, I wouldn't
Right.
agree with calling the first one immaterial.
Okay, what would you say it is?
It's what you explained is the mind and then the body.
A perceived world of thoughts. Okay, see, it's
that's
compatible with yours. A perceived world of thoughts, of ideas, of opinions.
Good. Just don't call it immaterial, because
okay, perceived immaterial.
We can argue
world.
that. We can argue that.
Well,
Perceived
are your
immaterial.
thoughts and ideas material?
We can argue that, but I'm saying just when you present it, you already picked a side.
Okay.
No,
because you already expect the existence
he's right.
of
He's
a
right,
metaphysical
bro.
world.
He's right.
A perceived metaphysical world.
Well, yeah, all right. Anyway, in short, in other words, right? Mind-body problem is, what rules what, or what is a part of what. So is the mind a part of the body, right? As in, is the mind physical in its aspects? Our thoughts, chemical processes, electrical firings, and stuff like that. Or the other way around. Oh, and are your actions decided by outside factors? This is very deterministic, right? Is mind part of the body, right? The other side is the body part of the mind? So factors can be overcome, with enough will and stuff like that. How would you describe the other side? The mind over body.
The mind over body?
Yeah.
So your thoughts are somehow basically separate from... Not separate from your actions. I guess your thoughts are your actions. Those are the ways that you actually dive into the world.
Right.
But the point is that your mind it has its own cognition. It has its own locomotion, I guess. That's a good way of putting it.
It's a good train of thought.
Yeah. But
I mean, no,
Okay.
you finally caught that pun.
yes. Okay, continue.
But okay, so you guys kind of caught my opinion of what's my take. But maybe I should elaborate a bit more. Reiterating my previous my previous opinions, that I don't think there are absolutes. I think it can be a combination of the two. And as you commonly think, that some actions, were a process of just some kind of pressures from your from biology, right? Like you really want to eat this, like some kind of nice thick juicy burger,
craving,
vegan burger.
Okay.
That's for the next
accommodating our vegan viewers
for the next
and
episode,
hosts.
Little taste.
Yo, next episode, little spoiler, vegan guest.
Yeah, maybe.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Definitely.
Carnivore guess?
No, we don't know any carnivores. No, carnivore means you eat exclusively meat.
Yeah, I'm gonna change to that.
Well, actually,
Oh my God.
I know a carnivore person. Not a person. He's a cat.
Okay. So anyway, I just looked something up here on the computer. So
Wow.
just a different way to put it, and I think this actually I thought of something with this. So, is the mind, blah blah blah. If mind and body are distinct, right? Then how do they interact? And which of the two is in charge? Okay, so this reminded me immediately when I read that. Which of them is in charge of? I forgot what it was exactly called, but there are three models, and I want to see if you remember.
They're never absolutely in charge.
That's interesting. Hold on. That's one of the three, right? Because the three models with the emotions. If you recall from psychology, I forgot what they're called.
Talking about Beck's cognitive triad?
Yes. No, I don't know. No, I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
It's the emotion thing. So, let's say you see a bear, right? Is it the physical response of the heartbeats?
Talking about Cannon Bard.
Yes.
Cannon Bard and the other two. There's
other
two other
two. Yeah,
theories.
right.
Oh, explain this?
So
explain the three types. I'll look up the names.
You have to look up each one because I don't know what Cannon Bard is exactly. I just know that one of them would be, let's say, right now you're on your phone. I smack the phone out of your hand. Okay.
Okay.
What would your emotional reaction be?
I'd be surprised because it seemed pretty calm now.
But you wouldn't be angry.
And you might be. Let's just say, for example, he might be a little angry.
You might be a little angry.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty angry.
You're pretty frustrated.
What about it?
Why would you be frustrated? Why would you be frustrated? And what came first? Me hitting you or the emotion? That's technically
your action elicited the emotion.
It's your physical response or your emotional response.
Yes. So would your heart start racing first, or would you start thinking first?
Right. So let's say he hit something off the desk, right? You notice that, and your eyes perceive it, and the message is sent
to the brain
in a rigid way in the brain. You don't process it consciously. Immediately, a signal sent to the heart, and the heart starts beating faster. So now the thing is the heart beating faster what
triggers a response?
Triggers the brain to feel an emotion, or do you feel angry first and then you get the physical response of your heart beats faster?
Well, the first thing that would happen, I would just be shocked because there's a sudden change in the environment, right?
So you think the shock? Okay.
So a shock in the environment. I mean, it would take
but
time
shock,
for me to
what you have to
comprehend
understand is shock
on.
is its own emotion. That's like, that's
Well,
kind of like,
okay,
it's kind of a mix between fear and almost disgust, kind of. It's weird.
Well, I would see shock as a sudden change in environment, right?
Oh, like
so
a blank. Okay.
You knocked the phone out of my hand, right? It would take time for me to process it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously...
But then that's before the emotions, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I also have to reason, were you helping me? Was there like a bug on my phone? Right? Some venomous bug on my phone and you were trying to save me? Or were you just like feeling like, you know what? I don't like Professor D today.
Look,
here,
sir.
let me get rid of his phone.
Look, I think you're underestimating your response time, honestly. Because I feel like you might laugh. You might laugh first, okay? And that's a really quick response. It's way quicker than you're thinking.
Really?
Okay, wait.
Yeah,
so
probably.
This is one of them. There's the two-factor theory of emotion, right?
Okay.
So this is the one I subscribe to because personally, anecdotally, I've experienced this. So, and let's see if we can explain it first. So, a two-factor theory of emotion, right, states that emotion is based on two factors: psychological arousal and cognitive label. So, okay, so you and your partner were just in a fight, right?
Okay.
Let's just use you as an example. Like your heart is beating fast, right? You know, you guys were getting into it, a verbal argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're angry, frustrated, or whatever, right? You're, I guess you're a little physically tired because your heart is beating quickly.
You're physically tired.
You're sweating.
I would say
like
adrenaline's
you're
going
tearing
up.
up.
You're sweating a little bit. Adrenaline's going up.
Oh, okay.
And your body's becoming more active. Blood is flowing more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are physical responses, right? So this would say that. Okay. So an example of two-factor would be like, you had an argument, right, and you're angry and stuff like that. Then, your partner might suggest something, or you think of something, and then you say, "Wait a sec, maybe I'm sexually aroused," right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put that as the label, and then then you don't feel angry anymore, but you think everything is. I'm not explaining it properly, but you think you go straight into sexual arousal. You're not angry or upset. You're sexually aroused and happy, right?
Notice how the sweating and the heart racing, it's still there. That physical presence is still there.
Mm-hmm.
The biological response, but it's just the emotion that's changed.
In the case of the fight, it would be the situation, right? And my body is starting to go into fight mode, right?
Right.
And that would tell my brain like, okay, come on, we gotta go. Like, it's time to fight. Time to get amped
time to
up.
engage.
And
fight or flight, bro.
And then in another situation, right? It would be the opposite. It would be my brain telling my body like, come on, let's go. Let's get amped up like on a test.
Right.
Let's say it's a big test. It poses no physical harm to you.
Right.
No harm to you at all. But it is really a battle of ideas, right? A battle that you might not do so well, and then you won't get into the school. And in that case, the mind prevails over the body. That it controls the body. It tells you. It makes your heart starts racing, right? But in the fight, it was the other way around. That's, in that case, you don't have like any absolutes here.
What I would say that you just outlined are the two other theories. So Cannon Bard, and then there's the James Lang. So one of them says, like you said, let's say the test example, right? It's all the psychological things that cause the physical. So you're psychologically worried, so then your heart starts beating and you start sweating during the test, right?
Okay.
I think the final one is actually the physical response, and then you learn what that physical response means. Like you take it as a cue.
I think it's the label.
That's
the label.
I think it's from the two.
Sorry, my bad. I guess that is the label.
Can I give another example about the two-factor one? Because this is the one I really subscribe to.
I kind of liked it a lot too.
Let me give you the personal example that I felt, right? So this was really weird to me, and I didn't understand it until I took psych, and we learned about this, and I was like, here's exactly what happened. So, I was hungry one day, right, home alone. So I was making some food. I was like, putting a lot of miscellaneous things into a bowl. I was like, okay, I could, cut up an onion, cook it in a pan, and put it in there, right? So I started cutting up the onion, right? And So I started to feel, I didn't know what was happening, right? I started to feel my eyes tearing a little bit, right? And then I wasn't thinking of anything in particular, and I got a little upset. I was like, why am I feeling sad right now?
Because you killed the organism, the onion.
Wait a second.
That's how vegans are. I don't know.
All right,
They can't control it. They just gotta cry.
All right, no comment. Back to the example.
Okay,
I was like, what is going on right now? Why am I getting sad? This is kind of pathetic, right? And I started to feel sad.
And then you got sexually aroused?
No. Okay. No, that's not where it's going. But then I realized, wait a sec, I'm actually stupid. I'm cutting an onion, and that's burning my eyes, right? And then the emotion went away. It meant immediately away because the label changed.
Well, it's probably because you have an association of crying with sadness.
Exactly. The label.
You see, he learned that crying was a sad thing.
Right, I learned the physical thing, my eyes tearing, was a product of sadness. So then I started to feel sad because I got the physical thing first.
It's kind of like when you're in a place. Let's say this is not really part of it, but it might be. Let's say you're in a place where you've been sad in the past, and it reminds you of those sad memories. But it's not like anything sad is happening to you right now, but you still might feel that way. Mm-hmm. It could be something akin to that. So yeah.
Well, I think these associations that we form is the connection between the perceived immaterial world and the material world. No?
Yes. Yeah. I perceive a lot of things as immaterial. So I agree. I like that label. But yeah, a lot of things come from that interaction. Yeah.
Make note of perceived.
Yeah.
We want to avoid controversy here, folks.
No, we like controversy, but
a good kind of controversy. We don't want to.
We shouldn't assume.
We don't want to.
We don't want to start a riot, or maybe we do. I don't know, Anarchy.
We don't want to derail the train of thought here.
See, this is what I'm saying. Stereotypical.
Stay.
We don't want to cause.
You watch too many movies, buddy. Too many movies.
Yeah,
true. Actually, but okay.
Yeah, bro.
You know what's funny though? If you actually interact with a real anarchist. Right, as compared to a statist. I know it's a bit binary to say that, but okay, someone who's critical and someone who's not that critical, not as critical, right?
Maybe more accepting. Yeah.
That the more critical person is the one that read more, that learned, that had an initiative to learn more.
They're more educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get behind.
And also take that with you might also take that with capitalists and communists, right? And taking it back to modern politics between. That a Republican might call a Democrat, some kind of communist, right? Which is obviously kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But if you actually interact with someone who identifies as communist, that they've read a lot and very hard text too, right?
Well, it depends. If they're,
it
it's like if they're a true communist or not. What I would say, a true communist is someone who has actually learned their stuff, and then they've committed to it.
Yeah.
If you just say you're a communist, because I saw a really terrible video once where there were a bunch of student protesters who were saying they were communists, and then a guy who's actually lived in under that sort of government went up to them, and he had the experience to talk to them. They didn't even know about 90% of the things he talked about. So they're not really true communists.
There we see the application of the concept because communism. Okay, so
I was gonna say something. I was gonna say something similar. I agree with you totally on your point, Doctor, right? About how they didn't understand what the guy was saying because they weren't very learned, right? But that guy actually experienced it. But what he was living under, like Professor D was about to explain, wasn't actually communism, right? That was a totalitarian regime.
Of course.
All right.
And that's the thing with all these patterns of saying that communism has killed so many people. It was really more of a variable of authority that led to all these deaths. So I feel that people are really pointing the finger at the wrong thing, and it's really a correct implementation of a concept, which might or might not be so well when applied in real life, but still definitely deserves some kind of recognition when studying it as a concept.
Okay, so this seems to all be pointing towards just the idea that education in general, or I guess self-studying is probably the best approach. But
especially with the internet available nowadays.
Yeah,
I noticed many resources.
I noticed that a lot too. We're kind of a bit lazy when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But, it's a weird thing to talk about because it's like, even with this knowledge, what can me, you, or him do about this stuff? That's the weird thing. It's like these ideas have to continue to flow to eventually reach a good point, But
I think that's one of the key
Yeah.
ideas behind the podcast. That's
Yes.
definitely why
Yeah.
I wanted a podcast
Okay.
so bad, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to spread these
These
ideas slash
yeah.
values that we have, or we want to bring
Agreed.
it up in conversation.
you could do it
Right.
through creation too,
Right,
like
I think
books and literature
and
and
we create content.
music. I don't know, but
All right. So I think
We should thank our guest,
yeah.
our very first guest.
Very first guest
Sure.
for playing a good part in this podcast. I think we did pretty well with discussing various topics. And on the next episode, we will be discussing veganism.
Yes,
and-
along with other animal questions.
Yes. Another question of ethics in general.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank you for listening. All right, I'm Professor D.
Anything you would like to say?
Actually, okay, I was
Doctor?
gonna just say. Well, actually, you go first.
Okay, well, good night, folks. I'm Anchi.
And
Any
So-
closing thoughts?
yeah, in conclusion, I was gonna say, one point that I did kind of want to get out still was in regards to teaching your child, you really want to try and make whatever you're teaching them engaging. That's what I was trying to get at before, not to just reward them with some sort of like, I don't know, give them candy, give them McDonald's. That's a terrible one. That's a terrible one that I see that's really common
Especially
actually.
McDonald's. Ew.
Yeah. That's teaching them something wrong while also rewarding them.
Oh,
So
that could
that's-
also be another episode about fast food.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good
yes.
idea.
Yes.
That's a
Can
later
we do
thought.
diet or something one day?
We can
Yeah,
definitely
that'd
do
be
that.
definitely die.
Okay.
That works
I mean,
with
that's our
veganism.
next episode. We're focusing on diet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
sort
We
of.
can
but
build up. We can build.
that's
on a
more
little
like animal
further
rights.
with other
Yeah.
episodes.
We'll figure it out. But then, and also in conclusion, the best personality test. I don't know, probably BuzzFeed or some crap like that at this point.
What?
Or maybe I honestly though I like the 16 personality one, but Myers-Briggs pretty valid. So yeah, that's Dr.
Yeetski
also known as Shizer in some
and shawarma.
parts of the world,
And
and
Dr.
shawarma. Yeah. Signing off.
Yeah.
All right, good night.
Thank
everyone.
you and good night.